Ted Bundy, anatomy of a serial killer. He was handsome, charming, and intelligent, the kind of man who could walk into any room and instantly earn your trust. But behind that perfect smile hid a monster who preyed on the innocent. How does someone so ordinary, so likable, turn into one of history's most sadistic killers? What drives a human mind to hunt, deceive, and destroy with no remorse? One of the most notorious serial killers in contemporary history, Ted Bundy was a man whose charisma, intelligence, and charm belied a severely damaged mind capable of horrifying acts of violence. His name has come to represent evil concealed behind a happy front. Before being apprehended and put to death, Bundy terrorized the United States from 1974 to 1978 by kidnapping, attacking, and killing young women in multiple states. But what made Ted Bundy who he was is a more profound question than the gory crimes. Knowing his objectives, psychology, and the social context in which he operated reveals not just the characteristics of a serial murderer, but also the flaws in both law enforcement and human nature. Under difficult circumstances, Theodore Robert Bundy was born in Burlington, Vermont, on November 24, 1946. Eleanor Louise Cowell, his mother, was unmarried when he was born, which was a scandal in post-war America. Bundy grew up thinking his mother was his older sister and his grandparents were his parents. His identity was seriously confused as a result of this secret. According to some criminologists, his manipulative tendencies and psychological detachment developed as a result of his early deceit and mental instability. Bundy, who grew up in Tacoma, Washington, was a bright but uncomfortable kid. He had trouble forming social bonds and frequently felt cut off from his peers. As he grew older, he learned to mimic charm and social ability in spite of these early concerns. Bundy studied psychology at the University of Washington, which paradoxically helped him understand social persuasion, manipulation, and human behavior. He seemed intelligent, aspirational, and articulate. He volunteered at crisis centers, participated on political campaigns, and gave off the terrifying impression that he was truly sympathetic, which would later make it easy for him to entice victims. But underneath this facade of normalcy, Bundy had a thirst for control and violent fantasies. According to several biographers, he felt inadequate and resentful, which he reflected onto other women after being rejected romantically at a young age by Stephanie Brooks, an affluent, intelligent, and attractive lady. Whether this one incident was the cause of his anger, young white ladies with long brown hair parted down the middle were common physical characteristics of Bundy's subsequent victims. When a number of young women vanished from the Pacific Northwest in early 1974, Bundy's murderous rampage really got underway. It soon became clear that all of them were pretty, college-aged women who disappeared after a few brief interactions with a man who fit Bundy's description. He would frequently approach his victims in parking lots, libraries, and college campuses while feigning an injury and wearing a cast or sling. When they got close to his Volkswagen Beetle, he would attack them after asking for assistance loading anything into his car or carrying books. Bundy's acts were a combination of compulsive aggression and meticulous planning. He would kidnap his victims, transport them to remote locations, and then rape and kill them, often by blunt force of trauma or strangling. Later, some of the remains were discovered dismembered or decapitated. In order to indulge in necrophilia, which is a behavior that suggests an intense need for control even after death, Bundy regularly returned to the disposal sites. Such behaviors are typical indicators of a lust killer, a person who combines aggression and dominance with sexual desire. His crimes quickly become more serious. Before relocating to Utah and carrying on his rampage, Bundy kidnapped and killed several women in 1974 alone in Washington and Oregon. Due to his capacity to move between states, he was challenging to track down because police departments at the time lacked the centralized databases and communication systems that are essential to contemporary investigations. Bundy skillfully took advantage of these openings, weaving a network of disparate acts that would only be related in the future. When Bundy's murders reached Florida in 1978, he carried out one of his most well-known crimes there. The Chi Omega sorority murders at Florida State University. Bundy stormed into the sorority home early on January 15th and killed 2 of the 4 young women he savagely attacked. His last known victim, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, was kidnapped and killed a few weeks later. His increasing violence and loss of self-control were demonstrated by these crimes. He was a serial killer whose compulsive behaviors had totally eclipsed his calculating demeanor. Examining the relationship between sadistic compulsion, narcissism, and psychopathy is necessary to comprehend Ted Bundy. Following his incarceration, psychological tests revealed that he was a textbook psychopath, manipulative, egotistical, remorseless, and emotionally shallow. Bundy was able to control not just his victims, but also law enforcement, the media, and even the legal system thanks to his flimsy brilliance and charisma. Power and sexual dominance, not retaliation or financial need, were the driving forces behind Bundy's actions. From the time of kidnapping to the moment of death and even beyond, he aimed for complete control. The dead were used as souvenirs, and the violence was ritualistic. Psychologists call these criminals power/control killers, driven by the excitement of having complete control over another human being. Because his victims were unable to oppose or reject him, his necrophilia represented the pinnacle of possession. Bundy's double life was as noteworthy. During the day, he kept up relationships, went to law school, and even dated Elizabeth Klopfer for a long time without telling her about his crimes. He portrayed himself as a model citizen and volunteered for political campaigns. The audience was both enthralled and appalled by this dual existence, the enchanting front hiding a hideous interior. It proved that serial killers are not always blatant misfits. They can fit in with society at large. According to several criminologists, Bundy's actions were motivated by ingrained misogyny and narcissism. He saw women as objects, both objects of desire and objects of retaliation. It's possible that his violent fantasies began as a coping mechanism for his helplessness and developed into a compulsive behavior he was unable to control. "We serial killers are your sons, your husbands. We are everywhere," Bundy himself once remarked. The phrase serves as a sobering reminder of the banality of evil and reveals both his conceit and his awareness of how unremarkable he appeared. When police stopped Bundy for a traffic infraction in 1975 and found burglary equipment in his vehicle, it marked the beginning of his downfall. He escaped from custody twice, once by jumping from a courthouse window and again by digging through the ceiling of his jail cell, despite being initially accused of being involved in several disappearances. These escapes demonstrated his confidence in outwitting the system, in addition to his cleverness. Following a routine traffic stop in Pensacola, Florida in 1978, he was finally taken into custody. After being recognized, Bundy was put on trial for the Chi Omega murders, which were among the most well-known cases in American history. Incredibly, he represented himself in court, cross-examining witnesses and spoke directly to the jury with the help of his legal knowledge and charm. His arrogance ultimately sealed his doom, despite the media portraying him as smart and educated. Bundy was found guilty and given the death penalty in 1979. He was then given another death sentence for killing Kimberly Leach. Bundy wanted to be in charge even while he was in prison. He falsified material, made limited admissions, and conducted interviews in return for postponing his death. Bundy collaborated with FBI criminologists and agents, including as John Douglas and Robert Ressler, during his last years on death row, contributing to the development of early criminal profiling methods. Although analysts believe the actual number could be much higher, he confessed to more than 30 murders. Ted Bundy was put to death in Florida State Prison's electric chair on January 24, 1989. As news of his passing spread, crowds outside erupted in cheers, yelling, "Burn, Bundy, burn!" More than just a terrifying narrative, Ted Bundy's story teaches us about institutional change and human frailty. His victims were frequently young, gullible women going through a transitional period in their lives, illustrating the intersection of predatory intent and social vulnerability. Bundy's years-long avoidance of scrutiny shows how charm and conformity may mask danger. His control over the courts and media revealed how narcissistic criminals may use attention to gain power. From a psychological standpoint, Bundy is a perfect storm of opportunity without responsibility, brilliance without empathy, and want without restraint, the meeting point of environmental reinforcement and congenital psychopathy. His biography forces us to look at the social conditions that enable killers to flourish undetected, as well as their own pathologies. Like the video, hit subscribe, and join the investigation. More true crime stories are coming, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next.